Questions to the Minister of ACC. Does he think the huge culture change within ACC has gone too far?
Honourable Dr. Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very conscious of the need to get the balance with ACC right between containing costs and levy increases and ensuring people receive their proper entitlements. Costs were clearly out of control under the previous government and a culture change was needed. I am closely monitoring the ACC review data and would be concerned if there were an increasing number of ACC decisions that were being overturned. There is no such trend. A similar proportion of claim decisions are being upheld as under the previous government, indicating that ACC has got the balance right.
The Honourable Annette.
Supplementary question. As part of that culture change, does he recall ACC saying, quote, "We take our relationship with counsellors and clinicians seriously," end quote? If so, why hasn't he ensured ACC take the warning from clinicians at Ashburn Hall seriously, health professionals who provide New Zealand's foremost treatment program for victims of sexual crimes, who've had no referrals from ACC since October and have had to lay off 10 crucial staff?
Honourable Dr. Nick Smith.
Clinical decisions that are made in areas, whether it be in terms of surgery or whether it be in terms of sensitive mental health issues, are properly made by clinicians. What would concern me would be if decisions that were made by ACC's clinicians were being repeatedly overturned in the independent review process, and that would suggest that ACC had got the balance wrong. With specifically the issue of the sexual abuse, I have initiated an independent review being done by Dr. Barbara Disley, and I'm looking forward to receiving her report.
Supplementary question, Mr. Speaker. Does he recall ACC saying that they'd like to explain the changes that have been made for victims of sexual crimes so clinicians can, quote, "see what we're doing to improve service performance," end quote? If so, how does he intend to explain the loss of a long-term residential service at Ashburn Hall, which has helped victims rebuild their lives, a loss because of a $900,000 shortfall, while he boasts of a $2 billion surplus?
The Honourable Dr. Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, the key decisions around whether clients go to Ashburn Hall or receive care in other establishments, a decision that should be made by clinicians and not ministers. And if members opposite or Ashburn Clinic believe that people are inappropriately being turned down for treatment, the proper place for them is to take a case to review. And if the members got evidence of that, I'd be more than happy to see it.
David Bennett.
Supplementary question to the Minister for ACC. How much did ACC's costs go up over the preceding 4 years for claims and administration, which required a change in culture?
Mr. Speaker,
Dr. Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, ACC administration costs between 2004 and 2008 went up by an average $50 million extra per year, i.e. from $302 million in 2004 to $494 million in 2008. In our first year, we've reduced those administration costs by $35 million. Claim costs between 2004 and 2008 went up by nearly $300 million extra every year, a rate of increase 5 times the rate of inflation. It was clearly unsustainable. Like so many parts of the public service, Labor let costs get out of control.
The Honourable David Parker.
Can't the Minister see that the change of culture and push towards privatisation that he has lauded is exactly what led his appointed chair of ACC, John Judge, to say that doctors, in addition to facing disciplinary action, should pay financial penalties for medical errors?
The Honourable Dr. Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, firstly, the member deliberately misquotes Mr. Judge. He deliberately misquotes him, as is so often the case.
Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr. Speaker, to deliberately misquote is to mislead the House. That is an allegation that is not allowed to be made by way of answer by a Member of Parliament.
I accept the point the member's making. Perhaps if the member could change his language so that he's not...
Mr Speaker, the member misquotes the chair of ACC, who has actually had an incredibly challenging job, given the fact that the previous government, in just 3 years, in the audited accounts, let the liabilities of ACC blow out by $10 billion. And Mr Judge has had an awfully challenging job to try and get that under control.
The Honourable David Parker.
Is the Minister concerned that the chair of ACC is so obviously out of touch with the underlying principles of our ACC system that he is clearly pushing towards a litigious, Americanised private insurance model?
The Honourable Dr.
Mr Speaker, the member's way off beam. This government is totally committed to an efficient 24/7 no-fault scheme, but I make no apologies for this government and Mr Judge looking at sensible ways of which we can engage with the private sector to better manage claims, to rehabilitate more quickly, and I congratulate Mr Judge on reversing the decline in rehabilitation rates that occurred under the previous government.
The Honourable David Parker.
Why is the Minister so at ease with this undermining of the current ACC model by moves to privatisation and financial penalties for doctors, which is what he did say, Minister, when it's abundantly clear that the Americanised insurance model that he and Mr Judge are pushing New Zealand towards leads to more conservative and expensive medical treatment, as well as money being wasted on lawyers and insurance company margins?
The Honourable Dr.
Mr Speaker, under any model that this government looks at to incorporate the private sector, exactly the same entitlements will be involved, exactly the same independent review processes will be involved. But we make absolutely no apologies for wanting to use the private sector so we can rehabilitate people, get them back to work where they're making a positive contribution, rather than the culture of the previous government that seemed happy to have thousands and thousands of New Zealanders sitting on ACC, not being rehabilitated and not being able to work.
Point of order, the Honourable Annette.
Mr Speaker, I seek leave to table a letter from the Medical Director of Ashburn Hall which states our primary concern is the care of the patients who are being denied treatment under the current ACC guidelines.
Leave is sought to table that document. Is there any objection? There is no objection. Question number 5, Catherine Delahunty.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. Tēnā koutou.